let's bring things from theory back to reality.
Sorry, I gotta chime in already. Remember the scene in Endgame where Thanos was like, now reality can be whatever I want. That's how I feel about this breakdown because there is information in there. There's very good research done, but there's stuff that's completely ignored. And actually, some of the data that I'll point out in this video actually contradicts itself if you know to look at it. And thankfully or luckily for you, I do. All right, keep going.
What are my projections for the housing market for the
Tell
rest of the
us.
year, and what should you do as either a home buyer, investor, or realtor to ride out this storm?
Let
Well, if
us
you're a
know.
home buyer, you have to understand that home prices are still tremendously overvalued. And
Okay.
that's not my opinion, that's a fact.
All
In
right.
particular, the ratio of home
Reality.
price to income in America is near a record high today. It's 31% overvalued compared to its historical norms.
Huh.
The same thing for home prices to rent,
Huh.
the same thing for home prices adjusted for inflation. What
We're
that
gonna
means
break all
is
this
a
down.
very high likelihood that prices go down in the future because we've never been able to
The future.
sustain
Here we go.
these levels of prices in the US housing market before. Now, those declines might take more time to hit than some people expect.
There we go. So that's part of the whole housing crash is going to happen thing. It's the continuous moving of the goalposts from 2019 to 20 to 21 to 22 to 23. Now I guess to 2024. You can never be wrong if you keep moving the goalposts. But let's get into it. Welcome back to House Rich, the first time homebuyer show where we help millennials figure out how in the world do I buy my first home. Today we're breaking down a video called Why the Housing Market Hasn't Crashed Yet. Parentheses 2008 repeat. If you know me, whenever anyone references 2008 to today, I'm almost immediately out because I'm like, this person does not know what they're talking about because they don't know what caused the 2008 housing crash. So here are the three main reasons, and I'll break those down in more detail as we get into the video. Number one, reckless lending habits with lenders. You just needed a pulse, you could have a loan. Number two, a vast majority of loans had adjustable rate mortgages. And number three, there was so much inventory then compared to today. I want you to look at all the information presented in this episode through that prism. But I think it's a good breakdown. He does reference some data, and it's a different point because I'm just a realtor, so I want everybody to buy a home no matter what's going on in the market. Let's get into it.
Why hasn't the US housing market crashed yet?
Talk to
Could
us.
we be seeing a repeat of what happened right before 2008?
Okay, I said I would wait to the video, but I got to get this out of the way because what happened in 2008? So we talked about the reckless lending habits. There was basically no income verification for loans. So basically, all the data you'll see from 2008, we talk about, or he talks about like debt to income ratio and things like that. It's actually fugazi, right? Because you could be making $50,000, but if you tell somebody that you make $100,000, your debt to income ratio is basically null and void at that point. So the data is kind of skewed due to the no income verifications. And as I mentioned, the adjustable rate mortgages, that's a big thing because reckless lending habits, lenders weren't explaining stuff to folks. They were just giving out loans. So an adjustable rate mortgage, you have a fixed loan or mortgage for a certain period of time. It may be 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 years. Like now the adjustable rate terms are like 5, 7, and 10. And so back then, if you had like a 4% interest rate, and let's say your payment was $1,000, the ARM may adjust like in 3 years. And so it may adjust up to 6, 7%, like these high rates we have right now. And so if your payment was $1,000 at 4% interest rate all in, that thing may jump up to like 14, 13, $1,500. So now the payment that you really can afford because you fudged your income, you really, really can't afford when the ARM adjusts. And the thing was that, hey, don't worry about those ARMs. We'll just refinance them down the line. And then number three, as I mentioned, the mass amount of inventory that hit the market because so many folks bought homes leading up to the crash. Right now, and you'll even see in this video, we're at historic lows as far as inventory. So that 2008 was the perfect storm that does not exist today.
We're in a very interesting time if
We
you're
are.
a home buyer or a real estate investor right now, where the housing market is massively overvalued, home buyer demand has collapsed,
Has it
but
though?
prices have remained resilient. Where you can see data from the National Association of Realtors is saying that prices are only down by 1% year over year in June 2023.
Yeah, so that's like it says, that's what the data says. So you can't reference data and then be like the data is wrong. What's the point of showing the chart?
Similar decline to what we saw in 2006, 2007 at the start of the last downturn.
Once again, does not matter for the reasons explained previously.
And what concerns me is that lots of people in today's housing market are thinking that there is no crash or that it's not going to get worse simply because it hasn't happened yet. Now,
Yeah. So once again, like I said, I cannot predict the future. So we've established the crash has not happened yet. That's literally the title of the video. And so yeah, it's not thinking that's what has not happened. There's literally been 1 year in the last decade that there's been actually a decline in prices year over year. It's almost like people need a place to live.
I would caution you guys against thinking that because right now the housing market is massively overvalued.
All
With
right.
home prices about 31% overvalued compared to the level of incomes in America. And
So this is actually a good point, right? So folks can only afford to buy homes at a certain price. Like income is income. So no matter how much you want a house, if you can't really afford it, and there's lending guidelines once again in place that weren't in place in 2008, such debt to income ratio requirement. Depending on the loan program, your debt to income ratio, which is basically your monthly finance debts plus your future mortgage payment divided by your income before taxes, those can be like 43%, 45%. 49.99%, and with like a VA loan, technically there's no cap, but typically most lenders will only go up to about 50% in that scenario. And the VA loan adds more requirements that the other loans actually don't factor in, such as like childcare and things of that nature.
And 26% overvalued compared to the level of rents. And these sky-high levels of overvaluation are even worse than they were in the lead up to the last housing bubble, which suggests that massive downside still remains for home prices in the U.S.
It's the straw man comment.
However, there's an obstacle, a barrier that's keeping these price declines from occurring, and that barrier is low inventory. There simply aren't.
Boom. One of the three major factors for the 2008 housing crash, as I've mentioned, factor number one does not exist. So
many homes for sale with data.
And I'll pull up the data when I play the video, but the amount of adjustable rate mortgages is way less compared to them as well.
Data from the National Association of Realtors showing that single family house inventory is clocking in only around 950,000 right now. That's about 50% below the long-term historical average.
So yeah, the data is saying there's no inventory, right? So that's what the data he's presenting says.
You can tell this inventory has been on a structural decline for the last 8 or so years.
That's a great point that he's pointed out, is that the decline has been for the last 8 years. This is not just some fluke. It's been a consistent decline for the last 8 years due to a myriad of reasons. As you can see, during the COVID timeframe, it was exacerbated due to the supply chain restraints. So essentially, we lost almost like a year and a half in production as a result of COVID. The inventory thing is not going to bounce back, according to the data presented. That proves somehow the other side of the argument. I don't know.
This low inventory is what's causing prices in America's housing market to remain resilient and even to have gone up.
100% accurate.
However, what's important for you as a home buyer to understand is that this is not a stable situation. Inventory is.
So it's an 8-year trend. I don't know how more stable like 8 years of information can get, but
is not low because there's strong buyer demand. Rather, inventory is low because sellers are refusing to list their homes for sale onto the U.S. housing market.
Sure.
Data from Redfin showing that new listings for sale are down by about 25% from their long-run historical norm.
So yeah, so once again, all the data being presented is that homes are not on the market due to people not putting their homes on the market. And I would say, supply chain restraints as far as builders. But here's the thing, like when people do decide to put their homes on the market, like what happens, right? They're going to buy another home for the most part, right? So it's not like people put their home on the market, then they're just going to get a tent and live in the woods. Like they're going to go look for a home as well. So like this flood of inventory when rates go down, I don't see how it's going to really help that much.
But I'm going to tell you why I think inventory is going to increase on the U.S. housing market into the future and push prices down. And that's because there's lots of, let's call them risky mortgages.
See, this is the straw man argument going back to the 2008 thing, which shows that doesn't truly understand what happened in 2008 as far as the reckless lending habits.
out there on the U.S. housing market right now, everyone. This is something you really have to understand.
He
Why
needs to
it's a
understand it.
risky time to buy right now is because there's lots of homeowners in America right now that can barely afford their mortgage and property.
According to what information, there'll be no data presented that that backs up that hypothesis.
Tax payments. We have lots of homeowners who are what is called house poor, who are just barely getting by on paying their mortgage. And because the unemployment rate is low and because we haven't seen the recession.
So once again, so all the data is saying that this won't happen, because remember, the Federal Reserve has been raising the cost to borrow money to combat inflation for like the last year and a half. And so that was supposed to cost the recession. It didn't, right? So, and then we have an election year next year. Things are always put in place to keep jobs rolling in, but let's keep going.
Worse, and they're holding on. But these people are at high risk for selling in the future if the economic downturn gets worse. And one way to understand this, folks, is to look at a metric called the debt-to-income ratio for home buyers in America. This is
it won't be cherry-picked
tracked by the Federal Housing and Finance Administration, a group that runs Fannie Mae. And they're reporting that the debt-to-income ratio is now approaching close to 40%.
So you're like, wow, that is a crazy stat that the debt-to-income ratio is 40%. But what the gentleman is not really explaining in this breakdown is that so first off, a 40% debt-to-income ratio is high because, once again, your DTI is your monthly finance debts plus your future mortgage payment divided by your income before taxes. So your real life DTI is probably like in the 80, 70 or 80% once you factor in the taxes that come out of your paycheck. Because if you make $60,000 a year, aka $5K a month, you don't get a $5K check every month. And it also does not factor in like non-finance expenses or basically cost of living your life. But this is just the folks that purchase homes in that quarter. Not 40% of home. Not every homeowner is at a 40% DTI, but although he won't say it, but he'll lead you to make that interpretation, right? Which is why I talk about reality can be whatever you want. And also, well, let's let the chart keep going.
On the U.S. housing market. In the third quarter of 2022, it was 38.8%, and I'm projecting that today, in the first quarter of 2023, it's 40%. And what this means is that
let's pan out. Let's pan out though. So let's go back. When is this pan out?
Average home.
Oh, he hasn't got the year. Okay, so we got 2012, basically the start of the recovery from the housing crash. It was 34% then, 40% now. 6% is significant, but it's not like it went from 20 to 40%. Like, you notice he doesn't point out any of the other DTIs from previous years. But all right, let's keep going.
Home buyer in America's housing market with a mortgage is spending close to 40% of their gross income on their interest in mortgage costs.
So once again, 99% of people that own homes did not buy their home this quarter, right? So it's kind of like a very cool stat to put up, but once you like think about it and really put some thought towards it, you'll see it. It's one of those who cares stats.
Now, why that's very concerning is because that's a very high level of mortgage interest debt. It shows that people are very stretched. And in fact, it's a higher level of interest burden than people had in the run-up to the last bubble. When the debt-to-income ratios in 2004 and 2005, they registered around 37%.
So that's why I wanted to point out the reasons for the 2008 housing crash, the reckless lending habits, so people could just make up their income. So these debt to income ratio requirements, or these numbers, are actually much, much higher, most likely, because you can make $50K a year and tell somebody you made $100,000 a year. It was just no income verification. So when we're looking at people saying what they told you was their income, and it's 37%, it had to be much higher in real life, because we know there were lots of people that were inflating their income. So we see 37%. It may in real life be like 47%, 50%. In some cases, folks probably like 80, 90, 100% DTI, because once again, they were just, hey, let the good times keep rolling, arms and all this other stuff. So this data is not as important as he would lead you to think it is.
And peaked at 39% in 2007. So I want you folks to think about this. The mid-2000s was known for all the bad mortgages that people took out that people couldn't afford. Yet the debt-to-income ratios back then are comparable to what home buyers are
not,
buying
as I just explained,
which suggests that we are going to see mortgage defaults and foreclosures in this housing cycle. There's lots of people who like to think that we're not going to see those.
So it's people that look at the information, and the data says that we are not seeing it right now. So right now we're still below the 2019 levels of foreclosure. So it's not what people think. Like, that's what the data says. So what happens in the future may happen in the future, but there's like no data to predict it. It's like saying, hey, playing the lotto was a smart financial decision because somebody won. If you just happen to win, you happen to win, but it's not a smart financial play to play the lottery.
They say that we don't have bad loans anymore. They say we don't have subprime loans, and thus
No, people don't say that. That is like the truth. Like that is what the case is. Like, there are much different lending habits than were in 2008. I'm a mortgage lender, and I can tell you there's much different lending requirements in 2008. If anything, during COVID, remember all the people whining because the banks tightened their lending requirements. They're like, oh, now they're discriminating, blah blah blah. So
there won't be foreclosures. But how could that be the case if the debt to income ratios today are the same as they were in the mid 2000s?
Just explain
while the down payment levels today, they're actually lower than they were.
Oh no! So I'm a realtor in Dallas and would love to help you reach your goals of home ownership. So click the link in the description and just schedule a call no matter where you are on your journey. Not in Dallas? No worries, I can help connect you with a vetted realtor in your local jurisdiction as well. And feel free to share with friends, family, and foes. Everyone gets left. The emphasis, like, who cares? Yeah, so the down payment requirements are different than they were today. Like, your mom and dad, when they bought a home, they had to put down 15-20%. Now there's many loan programs, even since I've been in the industry, like, the minimum requirement for a conventional loan has dropped from 5% to 3%. There are a lot of different programs that help folks buy homes, because folks have realized that, like, the money is a lot of people's biggest predicament or roadblock to buying a home, but it's not the most important factor when it comes to meeting your financial obligations. That would be actually your credits or your ability to meet your financial obligations. So yeah, that is another stat that to me is neither here nor there.
The mid 2000s, people put more money down, around 22%, on their home purchases in 2006, according to the Federal Housing and Finance Administration.
So yeah, so why in the world did the housing market recover with these small down payments? And why didn't it crash in 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, or 19? Like,
than they are today, which means that we will see a wave of inventory and forced selling on the U.S. housing market at some point in the future. I can't tell you exactly when that's going to be.
So you can't be wrong.
Frustrating for a lot of you home buyers out there who've been waiting 1, 2, maybe 3 years to buy a house. Some of you are at your
the 1, 2, 3 years is very important, because not. So once again, I'm not saying anything bad about this gentleman. He's done a bunch of research, more research than I've done on the housing market, but I think it's kind of skewed. And a lot of folks like you may be listening, like, hey, that you just look at the housing market from the last 2 or 3 years, which is not a way to look at the housing market. What happened in 2020 to 2022 up until June is not a normal housing market. So you can't really use that as any legit point of comparison.
Wits end and don't want to wait anymore, which is understandable. However, it's my job to inform you guys that it's still a very risky proposition to buy a house today with how overvalued the housing market is. And
it's risky to buy any asset. Like, there's no risk-free asset except for cash, but that even goes down with inflation. So there's no risk-free asset, but you 100% need to have a living expense, unless you are fortunate enough to just live in your parents' like pool house or something like that.
How many, let's just say, stretched out mortgage holders and mortgage borrowers there are. And these factors are now intersecting with a massive collapse in home buyer demand. Mortgage purchase applications, the home sales, they're close to the lowest level in 2 decades.
But he kind of explained why, right? With the people that have low rates and people that their rates are high, so folks that want to sell their home. And I kind of talked about the supply chain issue. So, okay.
With CNBC reporting that June home sales just dropped to their lowest pace in 14 years as short supply chokes the market. June home sales were 19% lower than they were last year.
So he's banking on you not actually reading the article that he's sourcing as his backup. But I read the article. So here you go. I'm going to read an excerpt from the article on the supply chain chokes that he's saying are due to lack of demand. The continued weakness in the housing market is not for lack of demand. It's all about the critical shortage of supply. There were just 1.08 million homes for sale at the end of June, 13.6% less than June 22. At the current sales pace, that represents a 3.1 month supply. A 6-month supply is considered balance between a buyer and seller's market. So 3.1 months of supply means that if not a single home was put on the market from today or when that data was taken till present, that all the homes would be gone in 3.1 months. So even the article that he's referencing contradicts his point.
The slowest pace since June 2009. And so very important that you guys understand this point, whether you're a buyer or an investor, is that the demand in the market is still at rock bottom levels.
So it's not like there will not be a single statistic in this entire presentation that talks about buyer demand, just FYI.
Home buyers, they are out on the housing market. They don't want to buy. They know prices are too high, especially with mortgage rates now hovering around 7%. The affordability metrics just make it not feasible for the vast majority of people to purchase a home.
Yeah,
Just how
hard.
bad is this situation? Well, according to the National Association of Realtors, seasonally adjusted home sales were 4.16 million in June. Now, you can see that's way down from the home sales and buyer demand we had during the pandemic. And you can see this yellow dotted line. Yes, it's legitimately at the lowest level of home buyer demand that we have seen since.
So once again, people buying homes and demand are not the same thing. So once again, he's trying to make you think that demand and purchases are the exact same thing. But I'll give you my perspective from somebody that's a realtor that's in the market and what I've seen. So demand at the bottom of the market has not waned one single bit. In fact, it always increases. Think about this. Wages, if you're the lowest you can make legally, minimum wage, I think is like 725, 750, one of those two numbers, right? So minimum wage does not increase. And so there's a lack of supply in homes. So those homes at the bottom of the market are very, very, very well fought over. I'm in the Dallas market. So shopping with somebody that's looking to buy a home under 300K, we actually got an offer accepted. Congrats to her 2 weeks ago. But we saw homes with 36 offers, 19 offers, 14 offers, 6 offers. So there's always going to be competition at the bottom of the market. That's why I encourage folks to at least looking to purchase a home during this time frame, because there's less demand. When rates go down, the bottom of the market is going to be even more on fire. I just saw an article from Redfin. So the average starter home sold for a record 243,000 in June, a 45% jump since before the pandemic. So once again, that's backing up kind of what I'm seeing out of the market as far as the bottom of the market still being on fire.
The start of the 2007-2008.
Who cares what happened in
There's
2007?
a big, let's just call it disagreement in the real estate industry about why home buyer demand is so low right now. People who are bullish on the housing market, people who work for the National Association of Realtors and Redfin, they claim that buyer demand is low because inventory is low.
So this whole they claim thing is just like the biggest strawman argument. That's what the data says. So whenever he'll point out like cherry pick data and be like, this is the facts. Whenever anyone else points out data, it's they claim. But watch this.
Since Lawrence Yun, the chief economist for Realtors, said that there are simply not enough homes for sale, the market can easily absorb a doubling of inventory, is what he says.
So once again, it's not just what he's saying, it's what the data that even the gentleman presenting this data has shown us. So remember the article where it talked about the lack of supply, that he didn't actually go into the article to see what he was talking about. That says there is a 3.1 month supply of inventory, and a neutral market between buyers and sellers is a 6-month supply of inventory. So if you double 3.1, you got it 6.2. So that's what the gentleman got his information from. It's not just make it up on feelings.
He says if listings and inventory doubles, there'll be the buyers there to absorb it. But I disagree.
Based on
with
what?
Lawrence. I think the reason buyer demand is so low is because the affordability metrics are so poor.
So once again, he's presented data and he's presented an argument and it's not really presented any information or data to back it up. It's just like, I think. And so, yes, the affordability is part of that. But once again, it is counteracted by even the chart that he showed, which shows that it shows supply is super low for homes.
On the U.S. housing market, think back to those graphs I showed you.
Yeah, I'm thinking back.
This video, the housing market's 30% overvalued compared to incomes and rents, and when you factor in 7% more.
So once again, value is what somebody will pay for a property. Like the whole 30% being overvalued is not not really a thing, and that's my opinion. It's a good data point, but the idea that something is overvalued, that people are paying for it, if they're paying for it, that's what the price is. Like a bottle of water is $1 at the grocery store. It's $5 in the air on a plane. It's $1,000 if you're in the desert and you're thirsty. Is it overpriced in either scenario? Eh.
Mortgage rates, well, most home buyers just have no hope of buying a house, especially in a state like
Yeah, with it's just man, this is just like fear tactics.
Florida, where the house payment as a percentage of median income is now 45%. In Florida, the median household makes 66 grand.
So this is a good data point. Like a 44% house payment is kind of crazy, but Florida was actually kind of a crazy state to pull up. So let's look at some data that shows basically the percentage of home price increases since the start of the pandemic. And so Miami, which is in Florida, is up 63.12% since the pandemic, even with the recent decline in home price, which has been pretty small, like 3% from peak to trough. At the height, Miami was up almost 65%. Now they're down all the way down to a 63% increase. And then Tampa Bay, Florida, is at 63.84% from the beginning of the pandemic, basically March 2020. And that's down like 4.7% from the very height of the market. So Florida was kind of like a wild stat or state to pick in this scenario. It just kind of shows like the cherry picking of data and not like showing you the whole picture.
They would have to spend $30,000 a year on their mortgage, interest, property taxes, insurance in today's market. Or let's zoom on over to California, where the typical house payment is 62% of the median household income. I mean,
that is high too, but we just flew over the entire United States of America to prove a point. I feel like there's some states in between Florida and California, even according to this map backs that up. But like even if you look at like San Francisco, from the height it's dropped 17.2%, which is what I would consider a crash. But if you pan out and look at the big picture since the height of the pandemic, prices are still up in San Francisco 27.64%. So that is a pretty hefty increase. Let's look at LA, another major city, down 8% since the height of the pandemic, but it's still up 39.65%. But let's keep going.
I mean, very clearly, especially in these states in red, the home buyer affordability is so bad that even when inventory increases, there won't be the buyers there to backfill the demand because they just can't afford it. And just to see, let's just take a look at Montana. Today's home buyers in Montana need to spend 52.
This is kind of like the opinion thought thing. Like, honestly, like no shade to Montana, but shade like, I mean, there's more cows than people in Montana. This is like a very weird state to pick, which just shows me it's just kind of like cherry picking data.
Percent of their income on a house to afford it. Previously, historically, that was 28%.
That is a crazy high number.
The last bubble was only 32%. So we're at an unprecedented level of how bad affordability is. And until that affordability conundrum gets solved through the way of both lower home prices and lower mortgage rates, we will not see a meaningful recovery in buyer demand, which is a big problem for a lot of people in the housing market, particularly realtors. I know I have a lot of realtors that watch this channel. I know that some of you are struggling right now. I mean, these very low levels of home sales combined with the beginning of price declines have really cut into how much money realtors make. With the number of single-family home sales per realtor only registering 2.3
That's crazy,
year right now. That's basically the lowest level of sales activity per realtor of all time.
So one thing I think is contributing to that is, once again, the rise of the pandemic, where good times were rolling and just anybody with a strong jawline or a nice shape got into real estate because it was just like, hey, buy this home, price will go up. I don't really need to have any knowledge. And so you probably can think about, there are a bunch of industries like that, Airbnb, Turo, any sort of stock programs, crypto, things were just going up, up, up. And you really needed no skill or plan in order to be a realtor. So yeah, you're seeing a lot of the wheat being separated from the chaff, and a lot of the fly by night folks getting out of the business. And here's another thing, like the vast majority of realtors are part-time. It's like, hey, I'm a realtor, but I work in logistics at Target. That's just kind of normal.
And because of this reduced sales activity, we are now seeing realtors quit. I first reported on this about a month or two ago, and since then, we've continued to see realtors drop out of the market, with realtor growth now falling to minus 1.1% year over year. So we're now about 3 or 4 months into declining
Let's compare it to
levels of
2008.
realtors
Are we going to
year
do it?
over year. You can see that it was around the same time in late 07 that we
Yes, duh. So like any business, if like the prospects of making money in it are going down, like people will exit the business. But once again, this whole 2008 bit he's doing, like I don't really get it, because it seems like he does a lot of research. I don't understand this whole, why do we have to tie it into 2008? Like if this was just presented without the straw man 2008 argument, I'd be like, okay, I may disagree, but I can kind of see what you're doing here.
started to see this decline in the last crash, as well as in the early 1990s during that last housing downturn of when the realtors started to quit. And to me, this is a big leading indicator that's telling you where the housing market is heading, and it underscores the fact that housing downturns happen slowly. And if you're a home buyer and investor wanting to understand the housing market, you have to understand this point. The housing market does not act like the stock market. You will not see prices drop 30 or 40% in a year or 6 months. It will take significant amounts of time for both home sellers and realtors, and a lot of it legacy investors, to accept the fact that the market has entered a downturn. And historically, on average, a housing downturn takes 5 years from start to finish. Whether you look at the downturn from 2007 to 2012, or
so we may be right in 5 years. All right.
The one that occurred in the early 1990s in different regional markets in America. And that fact in reality, I think, is uncomfortable for a lot of people, because it suggests that we're not going to see immediate relief. We're not going to see all of a sudden tomorrow, for you as a home buyer, it's just not going to get like way better to buy a house. It's going to be an incremental process, which you can understand if you look at maybe this listing on Zillow. Now this list.
So, okay. So, yeah, so I think we'll have to see, like the Federal Reserve will be, when they eventually start to decrease rates, because they're trying to combat inflation. That's why home prices, excuse me, that's why the cost, basically the payment on a home has gone up so quickly, because the Federal Reserve is trying to combat inflation. So they raised the benchmark rate for the cost of borrow money. I think 11 of the last 12 times they have met. So that's why interest rates are in the 7s. Hopefully maybe in a year or so, they'll be down into like the mid to low 5s. But if you're looking for 2021, 2022 rates and 2 and 3%, they'll just unicorn. If you got in, you got in, great for you. But you saw what happened with home prices during that time frame. So there's no market where rates are going to be super low and home prices are down. It's either rates are high, prices are depressed, or rates are low, and then there's a bunch of demand and prices go up. But let's see if we cherry pick one listing out of the entire United States of America.
Listing is in Nashville, where there's lots of inventory on the market right now.
Okay.
It's on the market today for $975,000. Still a high price, but you can see originally it was listed in March for $1.4 million. This was actually a flip. They've just been incrementally cutting the.
Like who cares? Like you can pick any. You picked one home out of the entire United States of America for this point of reference. Like I could pick a home too. Like, and I will do this once again. So the top of the market is just different than the bottom of the market. Like, yes, if you're looking at $1 million home, it may go from 1.25 million to 1 million. But at the bottom of the market, you're not going to see a $250,000 home go to 200,000 or 225, unless there's some sort of like structural issues. More likely than not, you will see those home prices have multiple offers at the bottom of the market. So once again, comparing $1 million listing in Nashville, Tennessee, and saying that's somehow a representation of the entire United States of America is just totally disingenuous. Genuine and disingenuous. Remember, like the Redfin article that I talked to you about a little bit ago, saying that the average starter home price went up 25%. But let's see what's going on with this one home in Nashville.
The price more and more, and the price is still high. But the point is, if a seller.
Correction, sorry, it went up 45%, not 25%. My correction for the starter home price.
Seller has an idea of what the value of their house is, whether it's 1.4 million from the start or whether it's 900,000 from the start. They're not just in a month or two going to cut it by 30 or 40%.
Agreed.
It's going to be an incremental process. That house might have to be on the market for over a year before the seller's finally going to wake up step by step to the price that it should actually be to sell. And we have quite a few housing markets in America right now that are going through these fairly large price cuts and where prices are going down.
All right, let's
The way to
see.
track these housing markets to understand where prices are going down, so go to Reventure app and go to a metric called price cut share. This tracks the percentage of sellers cutting the price and which states have the most price cuts. Well, you can see in red.
So real quick, I do want to, like I said, I know I'm kind of making fun of some of the cherry pick data and information, but there's a lot of information. I would say go to the app and kind of look at the research for yourself, because I think it's clear to anybody. Hopefully it's very clear, because I've been pointing out is that a lot of stuff is being cherry picked to push some, which honestly I think is kind of like a fair agenda in order to promote stuff. I'll just leave it at that.
Red, Texas has a lot of price cuts. Colorado, Utah, Idaho. They're
So
toward
I'm in Texas. These cuts are not at the bottom of the market, right? These are like luxury listings.
the top. Interestingly, Indiana is #1 in terms of the share of sellers cutting the price. But let's get even more granular and look at all the different metro areas in terms of price cut percentage. If we just filter to metros above 250,000 population, we can see the ones with the biggest price cuts are Austin, where 46% of sellers reduced the price.
So here's the thing. It's actually not Austin. Even the chart itself says Georgetown, Texas. This is a suburb outside of Austin. He's trying to pitch that there's this major city, Austin, the capital of Texas, that has a 40% like decrease there. Like that's just not true. Like the chart, it says Georgetown, Texas. It's disingenuous. And you'll notice this is the only, I think this is the only city that he'll actually like pop out the 46%.
Most recent month, we also have Colorado Springs,
I've been there.
Fort Wayne,
Nice.
Indiana, Evansville, Indiana, Huntsville, Alabama. This is an interesting one. Huntsville seems to be on the decline now.
Huntsville.
Waco, Texas, Ogden, Utah, Mobile, Alabama.
I know it's like a married to something, Huntsville, Alabama, but like Huntsville ain't really all of that. Yeah, I mean these are flyover states. I live in Texas, so I can say that, right?
South Bend and Denver. But it's not just price cuts, everyone, that's going to tell you the market's going to go down. It's also price cuts in combination with higher inventory and higher days on the market.
But there's no data or anything to support an increase of inventory coming anytime soon. Like you've not seen a single data point in this old presentation. So he keeps pointing out inventory, but the chart, we saw that there was a 8-year steady decline in inventory, which was exacerbated by COVID. And so, yeah, days in the market is an interesting price point. So just of note, like when you are putting your property on the, or you're putting like in your low ball offers, right? Because I'd say right now is the time to kind of do it where there's lower demand. I mean, you're wasting your time if you're doing it when the home's been on the market for like less than a week, or honestly less than 30 days somehow. So make sure you're looking at like the average days on market for your area or your market, and then see how long the home's been in the market at that point, because that's when sometimes sellers will kind of break and potentially take your low ball offer.
Those three things really will tell you the direction of your housing market into the future, and they're all available on Reventure app. And one thing I like to do
Definitely
is
check that out.
Filter and find the cities that have the most price cuts, the most inventory, and the highest days on the market.
All right, let's see.
We can do here through the filters tab. Let's filter price cuts above 20%. Let's filter inventory growth above 20%. And let's add days on the market growth also above 20%. What do you notice? Okay, what's left here?
I noticed that there aren't a lot of markets to support the premise of this video. That's what I noticed. And there are none in the Northeast, which is strong. I don't see any on the coast. So
well, these would be the housing markets that are most likely to see price declines over the next several months. They're almost all predominantly in Texas, Florida, and certain parts of the Southeast. Now, we can also conduct the reverse analysis to see which markets are least likely to see price declines over the next 6 months. They'll be the ones with the fewest price cuts, the lowest inventory growth, and the lowest days on the market. What do we got now? Well, now it's the reverse. We've kicked out all of these markets in the Southeast.
So we've kicked out the smaller markets, and you can see the major markets where most homes are and most people live are more susceptible to having price increases.
And now we're focusing mainly here on the Northeast. We have some Northeast markets where they're still very, very tight. Prices will still likely go up or stay flat for the rest of the year. Also in the Midwest and Chicago. Also, we're seeing some interesting things happen here in California. Markets like Sacramento, Stockton, San Jose, and Visalia, where these markets have turned a lot in the last 6 months. And they're starting to favor sellers more than buyers. And that's due to, again, the decline in inventory. There's been a big drop.
So there can't be a simultaneously decline in inventory and an increase in inventory. Like those are literally polar opposites, but all right.
In inventory in California over the last year. In a market like San Diego in particular, inventory is down 35%
Yikes.
year over year. And that's now causing the California downturn, which was, the hardest hit market, to stabilize. And I know this has been a frustrating thing for a lot of you home buyers in
Cali
California.
looks good.
You're wondering, well, with prices and mortgage rates still so high, how is it that I'm not seeing better deals out there?
People like to live in California, right? There's a beach, you have the mountains. You can go to the beach in the afternoon and ski beach in the morning and skiing in the afternoon. Like, people want to live in California. We're talking about like those major cities. Like, California is a nice place to live and visit.
And it's because of a lack of new listings.
That's why it's so expensive.
In California and other cities around America, it's going to take some of these sellers being forced to sell through mortgage defaults.
So mortgage defaults are literally at pre-pandemic levels. You'll notice he doesn't pull up any data that tells about foreclosures and defaults because there's no data to support that premise.
Liquidity needs and things like that to return new listings to the market and push inventory up and prices down. But some people are now convinced that that's not going to happen. Some people keep saying things like, we're never going to see inventory increase because all these home buyers have 3% mortgage.
So once again, this is the strawman argument. No one says never. Like, no one's saying it's never going to increase. Like, who are these people that are saying the home prices will never increase from now to the end of time? Like, no one is saying that. Literally no one.
That they've locked in and will never sell. You can let me know in the comments if you've heard someone say that or you think that yourself.
Nope.
I actually polled you guys here on YouTube and I asked you the question: what percentage of America's 97 million houses have a mortgage rate less than 3%?
This right here is a very telling stat of people's perception of the market and a lot of the misinformation and pandemic gurus that put out information on the market. So I guess 15%, because that made sense to me. I would have thought maybe even less, because if you look at a rate chart or historically, the only time in the 2000s rates have been under 3%. Basically, so we're saying 2.999 and below was this 1-2 year time frame during the pandemic. So the idea that can do this math in my head real quick. So 30, 70, 71%. Yes. So the idea that 71% of followers think that people have more than like a 15%, more than 50% of people have a 3% rate is kind of wild to me. And the fact that they think 65% of people have a 3% rate just shows a lack of people's knowledge and just following people that don't know what they're talking about.
Now, 29% of you said 15% of houses have a mortgage rate less than 3%. 29% of you said 30%. 18%
This
said
is wild.
50%, and 24% said 65%. So a quarter of you think that 2/3 of houses in America have a mortgage rate less than 3%. And folks, yeah, if 2/3 of homeowners in America have a mortgage rate less than 3%, well, then we will never see inventory increase. I would agree with that. But what's the actual number? How many homeowners in America have a mortgage rate less than 3%? Well, data from the Federal Housing and Finance Administration shows that 23% of mortgage holders in 2023 have a sub 3% rate. So that's 23% of mortgage holders. But remember, many homeowners in America don't have a mortgage. In fact, of the 97 million owner housing units in America, 37 million have no mortgage, or 38%. So that means that for those who have a sub 3% mortgage rate, it's 14% of all housing units. 14% have a sub 3% mortgage rate, which is a lot. It's good for some of you out there who have that low mortgage rate, but you can obviously see through the data.
I didn't really get that data. Let me just look at this one more time. So if 38% of people have no mortgage and 14% have a sub 3, am I reading this wrong? So 52% of people are in that position, because no mortgage means zero mortgage.
Of all housing.
If I'm reading this wrong, let me know in the comments, but it seems like
units. 14% have a sub 3% mortgage rate, which is a lot. It's good for some of you out there who have that low mortgage rate, but you can obviously see through the data that 14% of mortgage holders having a sub 3% mortgage rate is not what is keeping inventory off the housing market. There's another 85% of homes that have no mortgage or mortgage above 3% or that are vacant.
So the low rates, so the low rates is not what's keeping inventory off the market, but we have a lack of inventory. So what would change the inventory? Like, where are these new homes coming from? They're not coming from builders, because builders are not incentivized to build affordable housing. So
could hit the market. And the reason they're not hitting the market is because the owners don't feel the stress to sell. That is the biggest reason why new listings and inventory are low.
No.
Unemployment rate is 3.6%. The US government has piled trillions and trillions of dollars into the economy over the last 3 years. They suppressed interest rates for a decade. They built an expectation.
They suppress, basically, like the fact that who suppressed interest rates for a decade, right? So over the last decade, we've had the orange Trump as president. We've had Barack Obama as president, and before that, there was George Bush, I think. So, so no, it's only in the last 10 years, it'll only be President Obama and Trump. So there's been two completely different presidents in charge. Oh, sorry, and Biden. Trump did 4 years, right? So yeah, so Biden, Trump, and Obama. There's 3 different regimes. The idea that all 3 would just be like, hey, let's depress the economy. I don't really get that. And also the data doesn't support it either.
That nothing bad will ever happen in the housing market again. And if it does, the government will be there to rescue it.
Man.
That is why new listings are low. On top of that,
No,
also concerned.
It's because their folks aren't building. It's because of lack of supply chain restraint. Builders aren't building new homes. Like, come on now.
Now about the
like even the chart that he showed that, right? I mean, what is going on?
Banking sector in America. I just had one of you email me and say that they have their money in a small bank in Florida. They're looking to buy in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and they think that there will be a decline in value, but they actually would prefer to take the hit in value on real estate than leaving their cash in the bank.
Okay, hold on for a second. We're going off the rails now, right? So the idea that because of the banking crash that folks are scared to sell their homes, it's just wild, right? That's just someone that's super uneducated, right? So the banks are FDIC insured, meaning that your deposits are insured up to $250,000. So the idea that folks are not selling their home because of the chance that their bank may go under just doesn't make any sense. If you're really scared of that, put it in and you have more than 250, have multiple bank accounts. I think I saw like Giannis, who was like a 6 or 9 digit earner, has multiple bank accounts. So I mean, just do that. But the idea that the banking collapse is scared folks from selling home makes no sense. So that's really kind of the end of the video. I don't want to get into the whole banking collapse thing being a factor in the housing market, because that just makes even less sense than the other stuff. But once again, a different perspective than mine. Like I said, I think some of the information, when I say some, 90% of it, 5 maybe, was like cherry picked to like push some agenda. I'm not sure what his agenda is, but it's weird that it's such well thought out points, but there's such a blind eye to stuff that can clearly prove what he's saying is incorrect. When we go back and look at the 2008 housing crash, somehow relating to today, this whole thing with the banking thing, we go back to the lack of demand, which there was not a single data point for lack of demand in the whole entire presentation. Like I said, even the article that he showed with that headline, once I went to the article and showed you what the article said, it kind of conflicted what he said as well. But like I said, big shout out to anybody that puts their thoughts out on the internet. So I just happen to disagree vehemently with this. And I try to make you guys basically what I think is just like a non-biased interpretation of what the housing market data is saying. So it's kind of a stretch here because there's really no data to support a housing crash. When the data presents itself, I will present it to you. But as always, buy land. Rumor has it they're not making any more of it.